Good afternoon. I'm Mike Dennison with MTN News. I'm MTN's chief political reporter. I'm here today with U.S. Senator John Tester, who is here to join us on this rather startling day here from the nation's capital. Of course, if you've been watching the news, you've seen pro-Trump protesters storming the U.S. Capitol while Congress was in session. Senator Tester, can you tell us, what happened? What were you doing, and how did this unfold this morning or this afternoon?
Well, I mean, look, I probably will be able to tell you what happened a few months from now. I don't know that anybody knows what happened other than what was seen on TV. But the fact is there were violent actions that took place that caused the House and the Senate to suspend. And quite frankly, this is an affront to our democracy and has no place in our country. The bottom line is that peaceful demonstrations are something that happens here in Washington, D.C. all the time. On a weekly basis, often on a daily basis. But what we witnessed today is stunning, and it's very, very sad, and for a number of reasons. It makes us weaker domestically as a country, and in the eyes of our foreign adversaries, it is absolutely just cheapens this country like crazy. And I would say this, Mike, to those of my colleagues who invited this chaos onto our country, I would just say you have inflicted grave harm on our democracy for your own political gain. And the fact is they've enabled violence to enter the front doors of our United States Capitol. And I hope that folks are held accountable in that. And so it does show, Mike, that we need to continue to work together with both sides of the aisle. To put country before party and respect the outcome of democratic elections and the peaceful transfer of power that until now we have been known for in this country.
So at what stage in the proceedings did this happen this morning? Were you in a joint session discussing some of these objections to the Electoral College? Tell me more.
Yeah, everybody went into a joint session. And then Arizona was objected to, which means we go back to our individual houses. The House would debate with the House members and the Senate debate with the Senate members. We were just starting that debate. That debate could have been as long as 2 hours, and I don't know how long we were into it, 15 or 20 minutes, maybe a half hour at most. And the Capitol was breached, and then folks were put into a protective situation.
And can you tell me more about how were you notified that what was going on and told it's time to leave?
That was done by the Sergeant of Arms in the United States Senate. And, yeah.
Okay. And so the senators, including yourself and the staff, were told to essentially evacuate the Capitol. Is that what happened?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes. Yep.
And
we were. Look, I was in my office here. In Hart, and I was working on comments that I was to deliver on the floor, and then I saw this happen. So I was not in the chamber when it happened, but the truth is that I was told that they were told to shelter, and then they were moved.
Okay, and of course you're not in your office now. What's the situation just security wise for U.S. senators or staffs, U.S. House members? What directions have you received to remain safe?
Well, it's still pretty fluid, Mike, and just don't be running around the Capitol complex is basically what they told us. Find a place to stay that's safe and remain in place, and that's what we've done.
Okay. Now I've heard some discussion and seen some discussion online and elsewhere of people saying, we need to go back into the Capitol and complete the work of approving the Electoral College votes. So what are your thoughts on whether that is something that should be done today?
I 100% agree with that. I think we need to go back in as soon as the Capitol is deemed safe, whatever hour of the day or night that is, and we need to continue the job that we started at 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Now, you mentioned that there are a lot of peaceful protests in Washington, D.C., as there are in Helena, as there are all over the country at various junctures. And today we had thousands of protesters in the streets of Washington, D.C., and I don't know who was violent and who wasn't, but what do you say to the people who would say, well, this is these people were upset about the election results and they have every right to protest. Things got out of hand, but these are legitimate protests by Americans.
Violence has no place in protests, and when you're breaking windows or using wrecking bars to rip down windows or doors, there is no place in that, especially not in the United States Capitol. And we cannot allow that to happen. Look, protests are a part of this democracy. Making sure that people's voices are heard is a sign of a healthy democracy. The sign of a democracy that is not healthy is when you have actions like happened today, and they cannot be tolerated, and they cannot be something that we accept. Otherwise we're in trouble as a democracy, and certainly in trouble as a leader of the world.
Now, you referenced this earlier. You talked about people who are encouraging the idea that this election was rigged and that there was widespread voter fraud. Of course, those claims have been largely debunked by local election officials and others, judges around the country. What is your thought on this continued insistence by some that we should keep looking at the election? You said the election is over. Where do we go from here in terms of disposing of that particular issue?
Well, if you heard Senator McConnell's comments on the floor today, he was, for the most part, was pretty spot on. And that was, the election's been certified. The folks at the local level did an amazing job. The court cases have been heard, I think 62 or 63. And they've been found that the elections were secure and accurate. And it's some moment in time you have to decide whether you're the democracy that the forefathers intended for this country, or that you've changed into a different country. And I think that there have been plenty of court cases. There's been plenty of evidence produced. There isn't any grounds, at least I have not heard any grounds whatsoever, that this election has been manipulated or stolen in any way. And so I think it's really important that people out there understand that some elections you win, some elections you lose. And part of what's made this country great is a peaceful transfer of power and the ability to debate one another and come up with compromises and find common ground of people who don't see the world in the same way. That's what's made this country great from the beginning. And when that changes and we turn to a situation where and violence is incited and enabled, and we end up with a Senate chamber and a House chamber and the halls of our United States Capitol full of people who, quite frankly, from the pictures I saw, didn't have a lot of respect for the Capitol itself. I think that's a turn in a very dangerous direction.
Senator, I have one last question for you. Of course, just within the last hour, Mr. Ossoff has been declared the winner in Georgia, making it a 50-50 tie in the U.S. Senate now. And of course, with the vote of incoming Vice President Harris, you'll have the majority. And you said that Congress needs to get to work on some of these on pressing issues facing the country. Now that Democrats have the majority in the Senate and the presidency and the House, what is at the top of your list of what should be done?
Well, I think it's get out of this pandemic, Mike. I mean, I think getting vaccines distributed is going to be critically important, and we're behind the eight ball already on that. Montana's got about 52,000 vaccinations. About half of those have been put in the arms. That might be a little bit dated, but it's pretty accurate. We've got the people on the ground to get this done in Montana, and we need more vaccinations into the state, and by the way, across this country. So that's job one. Job two is to see how the recent package that we just passed has impacted small business and working families, those folks who have lost those jobs, those businesses that have been hammered by this pandemic, and move forward with in areas where there's more help needed. And it'll be some overtime when we see how this package works, making sure that gets going. And then that gets done so we can get our economy back on track. And then I would say the third thing is we need to work on, and we need to start right now in a bipartisan way. And I would say this, whether Republicans control the Senate or Democrats control the Senate, is we need a meaningful infrastructure package in this country. We are living off infrastructure that was built by my parents and my grandparents, and time has run out. And if this pandemic has showed us anything, we need better broadband. If business will tell you we need better broadband, education, same, healthcare, the same. We need better water and better water sewage systems. Most of that's wore out in this state. You know, it's been around for 100 years, and we need to make some investment. And certainly need to make some investment in transportation, whether that's through our highways or airports or even trains. The fact is that if we're going to make it so this country can compete in the 21st century, we need to get a pretty robust infrastructure package out that can help this country's economy over the long haul for decades and decades to come.
Thank you, Senator Tetra. Thank you for joining us on this troubling day. We've been talking with U.S. Senator Jon Tester from Washington, D.C. I'm Mike Dennison for MTN.